So I want to introduce our speaker for this evening. I have information. I always like to give information about the person who is going to be presenting tonight. Now, Bonnie has been a very long time member of AAI, along with her husband Al. She's our refreshments committee chair. She's been doing that for decades. And that happens after the monthly meetings, which is the third Friday of every month. She's responsible for the display cabinet that I just mentioned on the west wall of the observatory, and she designs and creates a display about every 2 months. As I said, she's been a member of AAI for over 50 years, which makes her 39. She writes articles for our Asterism newsletter. She's given many presentations here at Sperry Observatory about astronomy and space talks. They're less technical, but they're very human and a lot of fun. Unique topics. And she volunteers for everything, especially special events. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Bonnie.
All right. Hello, test. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Okay. If you people would like to find places to sit, it's okay. And you don't have to stay, but I would be honored if you did. Okay, tonight you're going to learn a lot of facts and fancies about the winter solstice. We're also going to find out how different civilizations celebrated the return of the light from Earth's closest star. Did you know that the sun is a star? A lot of people are confounded when they find out that our sun is a star. Imagine that, huh? Now, how do we celebrate winter in the Northeast, huh? I'm sure, yeah, we don't. And this is why. It's, yes, what do they say? It's not just a job, it's an adventure. And sometimes it's just more than a challenge, it's a survival. But there are plenty of other places on this planet where people do celebrate the winter solstice. Now, I'll just give a little background. This is the reason for the seasons. Earth's tilt and orbit around the sun creates the 4 seasons. We're at the equinoxes in March and September, and we're at the solstices in June, the end of June, and the winter solstice comes the end of December. Of course, that also depends where you are on Earth. On December 22nd, some parts of the Earth have the start of summer. And of course, we at the northern part of the Earth have the start of winter. So sometimes it can get confusing. Here's another example. The length of daylight will vary depending on the tilt, depending where you are, depending if you're celebrating the winter solstice or the summer solstice. From where we are, the sun is always lower in the winter sky. The summer, the sun is higher, so light stays in the sky longer. The time of sunlight is longer. The crops will grow. The mosquitoes will come out. During the winter months, the sun rises later in the day, moves in a lower arc, and sets early. And since the solar angle changes every 6 months, that's something to keep in mind if you want to have solar panels on your house. Of course, there are different ways to celebrate the light. Many civilizations denote the first day of winter. They celebrate because there's less darkness and more sunlight, as the sun rises slightly earlier and sets slightly later. Of course, nighttime astronomers don't like that. They'd rather have they'd rather have less time of sunlight. And solar astronomers would rather have more time of sunlight. But most celebrations include warm food and love of family and an anticipation of the growing time in spring. I used to fight with my coworkers. They would say, December 21st or December 22nd. It's the shortest day of the year. I said, no, it's 24 hours like any other day. What you're trying to say is the day with the shortest amount of sunlight. That is what you're trying to say. That's what you're trying to describe. It's still 24 hours, but it is the day with the shortest amount of daylight in the northern hemisphere and also has the lowest sun angle. It might be hard for us to celebrate winter in the Northeast, especially if you have a blizzard. It's a matter of survival, but there are plenty of other places where people do celebrate the winter solstice. The Hopi Indians. Oh, please forgive me if I pronounce some of these words incorrectly. Soyo is the winter solstice celebration of the Hopi Indians of northern Arizona. They include purification, dancing, and gift giving. The Hopi Indians welcome the Kashinas, the protective spirits from the mountains, and they use prayer sticks that are used for various blessings and other rituals. There's a Persian festival too for the winter. Yalda, or Shabi Yalda. This is the Persian holiday. It translated as birth in English. It occurs every year around the winter solstice, but it marks the birth of Mithra, the sun god. And some believers stay awake all night to welcome the morning sun. That sounds like an astronomer. Shabi Yalda. This was adopted from the festivals from the Babylonians and incorporated into the rituals of Zoroastrian, which is the Persian religion of the time. The last day of the month, or the ninth month in the calendar, is the longest night of the year, which means it's the shortest time of daylight. There is an ancient myth that says eating watermelon makes the person immune to cold winter weather, as well as the next summer's heat. So if you can find watermelon at the end of December, it's something to try.
Doesn't work.
Now, the solstice celebration comes in June because it is not the winter solstice for them, it is the summer solstice. The Andean region of South America, especially in Peru and Bolivia, Inti Raymi is a traditional Incan festival held during the winter solstice and involves the sun god. And there are elaborate ceremonies, music, dance, and ritual to welcome the sun's return. This festival was established in the Roman Empire in 274 CE. It combines the Italian sun god with the Eastern sun deity to create Sol Invictus, which means the unconquered sun. In ancient Rome, the winter solstice was commemorated with Saturnalia, a week-long festival honoring the god Saturn. It's a time of revelry, gift-giving, and role reversals. This is very interesting, role reversals. Where they celebrated this holiday is very closely linked to the way that we celebrate Christmas. It happened around the time of winter solstice and celebrated at the end of the planting season. There were games and feasts and gift giving for several days. And the roles were inverted. The slave masters would serve the slaves. And the slaves would sit at the tables and wait for the food to be served to them by their masters. It's very interesting how they reverse the roles just for these few days at the end of winter. Oh, I'm sorry, the end of autumn, beginning of winter. People decorated their homes with greenery and candles and wore colorful clothing. Gambling was permitted, and as I said, masters served their slaves at their tables. Even Antarctica gets to celebrate. The researchers staying there over a long, dangerously cold season, they have one day to enjoy themselves. Of course, in the Northern Hemisphere enjoys the most daylight hours. The Southern Hemisphere celebrates Midwinter Day when they have 24 hours of the sun. They have festivities of special food and films and sometimes even handmade gifts. So they don't call it Winter Solstice Day, they call it Midwinter's Day at the bottom of the world. First celebrated in 1898, the crew of the Belgian Antarctica expedition. Midwinter's Day is a tradition. And all 40 research stations down there celebrate the Midwinter's Day. Even the permanent stations that represent 21 different countries all celebrate it in unique ways. They make greeting cards, they exchange greeting cards and trade good wishes. And they have a specially prepared meal. They prepare for this for a couple of weeks in advance because it's very hard to get supplies down to Antarctica. And they even make postcards. They will send postcards to people back up north. And these are two examples of the postcards they've sent in the past. St. Lucia's Day in Scandinavia is a festival of lights. It's celebrated around the time of the winter solstice. Now it's here to honor St. Lucia. It has been incorporated with early Norse solstice traditions, such as lighting fires to ward off evil spirits during the longest night of the year. It involves a crown of lights that represent the coming of light amid the dark winter. You like that? People will dress in different clothing, have candles, and have different ceremonies. The day was originally timed to the Julian calendar, which marks midwinter. Slightly earlier than we do today was December 21st or December 22nd. Even the Chinese get into the act of celebrating. Dongzhi. The word Dong means winter, and Zhi means arrival. So it really, really means the coming of winter. They usually celebrate on December 21st or 22nd or 23rd to celebrate, again, the longest night of the year, the longest night of darkness. It's common for families to gather and enjoy a hearty, warming meal. It's kind of like a balance of yin and yang, energy and the coldness of winter, and the impending sunlight and the warmth of delicious food and being around family. The most traditional food are dumplings, or symbolizing reunion. And the key theme is to serve warm food around your family, to gather the warmth and to combat the cold, cold winter that is about to come. Folks, you have got to see this. You've got to see this. This has nothing to do with winter solstice, okay? But the best time to see this is in the winter when the sun is low in the sky. This is the Earth's only natural stone sundial. Now, it might be hard to see in the photo, but if you are in Italy at this area, and you watch the sun move across the low part of the sky, it will touch the top of one mountain, and it will be a certain time. An hour later, the sun will be touching another mountain, so you know an hour has passed. Another 30 minutes, the sun will be touching the top of another mountain, so you'll know that 30 minutes has passed. It's actually a sundial. It's actually a way to tell time. And the ancient Romans figured this out. They named this village Sexta, which means sixth hour. It's actually in the South Tyrol area in northern Italy. And something I didn't know, the ancient Romans started time counting from sunrise to noon. That's it. The day sort of ended at noon. I don't know what they did for the afternoon, but they counted 6 hours. Or perhaps it takes 6 hours to go from one peak to the other. I'm not sure. Again, when the sun is low in the sky in the winter, that's the best time to see the sun moving across and touching the mountain peaks, and you can tell time. The Sesto sundial is from the main, you can see it from the main road between Mozo and the Congress Hall. And it is the only sundial that honors plate tectonics and tourism. Mm-hmm. Yes, isn't that interesting? Before I close, I'd like to thank a few people, Mary and Al, and some nice websites I found along the way. And I know it's cold, and I know it's supposed to snow Saturday night, and during the winter there'll be a lot more snow, and no one will be happy around here. But it's the shortest day, said Tiny Dragon. Winter is truly upon us. But it is also the longest night, said Big Panda. And that comes with its own wonders. Yes.
About 25 years ago, my wife and I were in the Antarctic Peninsula during their winter solstice, the summer solstice
right
down there. And so you're up, didn't get dark.
Right.
But you mentioned a postcard. And we stopped at a Polish research station, and they had the ship had just left, that's delivered everything. So we mailed a postcard there, but it took a year and a half. Because by the time they come back and so on, the friends got the card about a year and a half later.
Wow.
But, it was an absolute riot. So.
Thank goodness now they have internet now.
And it was warmer there than in New Jersey.
Probably.
Because it was like 40 degrees and it was freezing here.
Yeah.
The word Yule, means literally comes from the Scandinavian word Yule, which where we get the word wheel. So it means that the wheel of the year is made one complete circle.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
The orbit, like an orbit. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, ma'am.
What were those websites that you got information?
Hang on. Whoops, like that. There you go.
So very interesting, the things that you found out about the other cultures, the other areas of the world, how they
Okay. Even in Scandinavia, where it's cold, they still celebrate because the December 21st or 22nd is the night with the least amount of sunlight. But the next day, if it's clear, you'll have 2 more minutes of sunlight. And the next day, you'll have 2 more minutes of sunlight. As the astronomers can explain, you would have in the morning, the sun rises 2 minutes earlier, and the sun sets 2 minutes later. Yes, later. Yes, later. So once the sun starts rising up the analemma, every day you'll have 4 minutes a day extra of sunlight until you reach the top of the analemma, when you have the longest time of sunlight and the least time of darkness, which around here would be June 21st, the summer solstice. Right now, we're getting to the bottom of the analemma, which would be the time when you have least light and more darkness, so that would be the winter solstice.